Good morning. This is a video response to a video by Suicide for Celluloid called A Brief Critique of Global Skepticism. Sorry for the moody lighting, it's just after 6 o'clock in the morning here, the sun hasn't come up yet. I do have electric lighting, I'm just not using it. Okay, so it's about skepticism. Yeah, I'm really glad you made this video because I've been thinking about this and I'm trying to find a way to move into it. Because one of the things I'm interested in is about how these terms like belief and doubt, know, have faith, those kind of terms are kind of inhabited in the body, if you know what I mean. A lot of my background in terms of my knowledge is to do with embodied cognition, cognitive poetics, those kind of things. And terms like, as I say, belief and understand and know, and in this case doubt, you know, they must, to my way of thinking, have some kind of correlates in embodied experience for us, which provide the templates for the conceptual understanding of those ideas. So I just want to think a little bit into that. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just going to ramble a bit here, but I mean, it seems to me there's something to do with, first off, to do with words like trust. Faith and trust are often allied together, and doubt and mistrust are often allied together, it seems to me. They're very closely related, so there's something similar about those. And if I was to have a kind of embodied version of that, if I could think of something I do in my day-to-day life, what we all do perhaps, it just comes with the nature of having a physical body and physical space, that has those terms applied to them, trust and mistrust, then I guess it would be something like, I don't know, stepping out in front of traffic or something like that. You know, if you're standing at the side of the road and you see a car coming down, he seems to be slowing down. You think, oh yeah, he's slowing down so I can cross the road. You're kind of trusting that moment. And of course, most of the time we're right, those of us who survive. But if you're of a cautious frame of mind, if you're distrustful, then you may not want to do that. You may want to let the car go past. Or there's a scene in a film, is it Indiana Jones or Star Wars, one of those kind of films anyway, where they have to make the leap of faith. I think it's called the leap of faith. But there's what appears to be a chasm across, just a chasm, huge drop. And whoever it is, Indiana Jones, Han Solo, I have no idea, somebody has to make the leap of faith and step out into the chasm. Huge act of trust or faith, opposite of doubt, and all the visual evidence is that would cause their plummeting to the death. But in actual fact, there's a bridge, which is concealed bridge, painted perfectly to match the background. So when you step out into the void, you are actually supported. So you have to put doubt aside in order to make that leap of faith. Now obviously no one does that in real life, but that's a kind of embodied experience, imagined embodied experience, which I can kind of relate to. That faith in that case is the putting aside of doubt, trust. You trust in the words that have been, the advice you've been given, and as I say, I leave doubt behind. Because it seems to me that the skepticism, the way you were talking about it, and doubt. You would never step out on that bridge, would you? You'd be standing by the side of the road forever waiting for the car to go past, or just speculating with the idea, well, a car could be coming up that road really, really fast. Because of course it's always possible. But at a certain point, leaps of faith are kind of possible and necessary, aren't they? And by leap of faith, I'm not talking about the huge investment in the unlikely, in unlikely events that the word faith is usually associated with. I'm just talking about the normal faith of day-to-day life. When I walk down the street and I put one foot in front of the other, I'm having some kind of faith that the pavement is going to be there under my feet. I live in Cornwall, actually. There's a lot of mine workings around here, so it's vaguely possible that one day there might not be. But I don't live that experience. I don't live doubting that the ground will be there under my feet. I keep making these little experiments, these excursions over the perimeter of my absolute knowledge, where my feet are firmly planted on the ground during this step. I take a little step forward, a little experiment, a little leap of faith, a little step out into the void, hoping that the ground will be there. And so far it's been confirmed it is. And if there is a doubt kind of, but it's there as an abstraction. Yes, I have this kind of abstract sense that, well, maybe I shouldn't trust the ground on which I walk, but I'm going to continue walking on it. And it's there as in retrospect. I may find out later that the ground I walked across actually was very unsafe, and I could have easily, fallen into a crevasse or falling into a disused mine working. But that's retrospective, isn't it? So it seems to me that the kind of scepticism that you're talking about here, I think, the kind of scepticism in which every action is doubted and leads to immobility, does that. It leads to, there's a kind of immobility, kind of frozenness to that. And in many ways, it's a kind of perversion of things like the scientific method, it seems to me. And you refer to Descartes in here and meditations. Well, I think that's really important, because a lot of people who claim to be influenced by science and the rationality of science also claim themselves to be skeptics in a way in which only acknowledges the doubt aspect of that. But of course science is built on not just on doubt but on faith, the kind of faith that we might call trial and error. You don't form a hypothesis, you don't doubt it before you do it. You take the step with the experiment, don't you? You step over the perimeter of your expectations and the known parameters of your knowledge, and you step outside of that, hoping that the ground will be there, and sometimes it is, and the hypothesis is confirmed, and sometimes it's not, and you have to step back onto the firm ground of what you already know. But that bit of it's often denied, really, and you just have to be sceptical. No, I think so. It seems to me you also have to make an initial faith investment. In fact, even in the meditations that you're talking about, I think I'm right in saying that Descartes compares the method of doubt to inspecting a barrel full of apples. You've got a barrel of apples, and you want to make sure that the barrels are sound, just like we would want to make sure that the knowledge we have is sound. So he's comparing that. So you take out the apples one by one, and you look at them to make absolutely sure they're sound. And that's is one analogy for the method of doubt. But of course, that you have to put your hand in the apple barrel first to have a look at it. You have to have faith that some of them are going to be sound. You have to go through the process. You do have to do those kind of things. Yeah, the Tahandness you're talking about, which is I guess you're referring to Wittgenstein. Talking about other things at the beginning of uncertainty. If I can say, here is one hand, I'll grant you all the rest. That stuff. Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? Because you mentioned cutting your hand, and what you would do with that. Because the kind of thing where you say, this is my hand, I said, well, I'm harking to Heidegger a little bit here, and his idea of Tahandness and that kind of smooth integration in the world, in these that we engage in with these kind of projects. And you only notice your hand when you cut it. You only notice the hammer that you're hammering with when the head flies off. Up to that point, you and the hammer and the act of hammering are as certain as anything else, because there is no separate entity to question the reality of that moment, or the efficacy of the hammer. So when the head falls off, you look at the hammer. When you cut your hand, you realise there is one hand. Up to that point, it's just the hand, isn't it? It's just the hand. Not sure exactly what it's got to do with it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I enjoyed that video. Thanks very much. Bye.